Yum Brands runs over 50,000 restaurants worldwide. Even though you might not always notice them, they're all around, especially in American towns. Yum Brands wasn't just a small success that got big. It was built to be successful from the start, though it has faced some problems along the way. Based in Louisville, Kentucky, Yum Brands is one of the biggest fast food companies globally. But how did it get so big, and where did it all begin? Yum Brands started with an even larger company, PepsiCo. Back in 1986, PepsiCo bought Kentucky Fried Chicken, which Colonel Sanders had started about 34 years earlier at an old age. PepsiCo had already bought Pizza Hut in 1977 and Taco Bell a year later. Seeing the potential, PepsiCo wanted to dive into the world of fast food. However, even though restaurants made up a big part of PepsiCo's business, they didn't make as much profit as expected. Realizing that their restaurants weren't making enough money, PepsiCo decided to focus on soft drinks and snacks instead of food. So, they made a separate company called Tricon Global Restaurants and put their restaurants there. Tricon was in charge now, and PepsiCo stepped back a bit, but they still kept some connection with their beloved restaurants. Yum Brands didn't officially start until 2002, even though PepsiCo had been buying restaurants since 1977. That's when Tricon changed its name to Yum Brands. They chose the new name to show how they wanted their food to make people happy all around the world. In the same year, Yum Brands also got Yorkshire Global Restaurants. Yorkshire owned A&W and Long John Silver's, and merging with them added thousands of new restaurants to Yum's list. They hoped this would bring in $5 billion more in sales. Just like most Yum Brands restaurants, Long John Silver's mainly sold Pepsi. Ever wondered why Burger King and McDonald's have Coca-Cola, while most KFC's, Pizza Hut's, and Taco Bell's have Pepsi? Well, there's a reason for that. Remember how PepsiCo still had a connection with its old restaurants? Since Yum Brands came from PepsiCo, all its restaurants have a deal to sell Pepsi products. That's why you mostly find Pepsi at Yum Brands restaurants. 2 years after changing their brand, Yum started trying out a cafeteria-style restaurant called East Dawning in Shanghai, China. By then, China already had about 1,000 KFC outlets, and East Dawning mixed the famous KFC style with Chinese food. This was just the start of Yum Brands' almost 15-year push into the Chinese market. Sadly, its success back home didn't stay as strong. Even though they hoped for more sales and value, things didn't really go well between Yum Brands and Long John Silver's and A&W. After 9 years, they chose to sell the restaurants. Yum Brands said they were more focused on growing overseas, and the two chains didn't fit their goals. Long John Silver's and A&W aren't the only brands Yum has let go of over time. They're just the most famous. Others include Backyard Burgers and Pasta Bravo. But in China, it was a different story. Ever since they first expanded with the East Dawning cafeteria in Shanghai in 2004, China had been a big market for Yum Brands. By 2016, it was clear that their operations in China were big enough to become their own company. So, Yum China was created as a spin-off of a spin-off. Yum Brands China is like the business version of Inception. Operating independently, it has the rights to run KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell in the country. Currently, Yum China says Pizza Hut is China's top casual dining restaurant, and KFC is the top fast food restaurant, and the numbers seem to agree. Nowhere else outside the US has KFC grown as fast as in China. Since the first KFC opened in Beijing in 1987, it's been growing by 50% each year. Besides KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell, Yum China also runs other chains like East Dawning and Little Sheep, and they've all been very successful. It's said that at one time, Yum China was opening a new restaurant every 18 hours. From one restaurant in 1987, they now have over 11,000 restaurants in more than 1,600 Chinese cities and towns, covering every province and autonomous region across mainland China. That's a lot. But along the way, they've had to deal with some big scandals. Even though they've been very successful in China, Yum Brands hasn't always had an easy time there. In the beginning, they had to do a lot of damage control. It started in 2013 when they were accused of using bad meat in their Chinese restaurants. Specifically, people said their chicken had too many chemicals. A big media outlet accused local KFC suppliers of adding too many antibiotics and steroids to their chickens. After sales dropped by 6%, it took Yum almost a year to fix things in China. Then, in 2014, there was another big meat scandal, and this time, all American fast food chains in China were involved. It started when a TV station filmed inside a supplier's place in Shanghai that gave chicken and beef to not just KFC and Pizza Hut, but also McDonald's, Papa John's, and Burger King. They showed workers touching food with their hands and dropping it on the floor before putting it back in the machines. Some workers even put old meat in new packages with new dates. Yum stopped using that supplier, but that didn't make people feel better. The scandal made news all over the world. And sadly, it wasn't the last time Yum Brands got in trouble for serving bad food. Yum Brands doesn't just do well in China. It's also been successful in places like the West Bank and Mongolia. When they went to the West Bank in 2012, they opened the first American fast food restaurant there. But Yum Brands can't take all the credit for this. While Israeli franchise owners said Palestinians had to use Israeli companies to open restaurants like KFC and Pizza Hut, Adib did things differently. Instead of working with the Israeli owners, he went straight to Yum Brands to get his own franchise. Some people warned him Palestinians might avoid the restaurants because of US support for Israel, but Adib wasn't worried. He said he only got the franchise and recipes from Americans. Everything else, like the employees and ingredients, was Palestinian. Now, there are several KFC branches in Palestine, showing that Adib's idea was a success. Then, a year later, Yum Brands took its Western food to Mongolia. The first KFC in the country was in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar. They plan to open more outlets throughout 2018. This was remarkable because it was the country's first Western fast food restaurant. Plus, Yum Brands introduced the drive-through concept to Mongolian diners. Things were going well until disaster struck. Many people got food poisoning, and over 40 diners had to go to the hospital. All the KFC restaurants in Mongolia had to close. It seemed bad, but with some help, the chain managed to fix its reputation. Now, its Instagram account in Mongolia is active, and they've opened their 14th KFC in the country. Today, Yum Brands is doing well despite the problems. It's one of the world's biggest restaurant companies, with over 52,000 restaurants in more than 150 countries. Even though Pizza Hut, KFC, and Taco Bell are successful, Yum Brands keeps adding other big restaurant chains, like the Habit Burger Grill. Since it split from PepsiCo in 1997, Yum Brands has become a huge global company worth billions of dollars. Its spin-off in China has one of the biggest restaurant collections in the world's most crowded country. That's the story of Yum Brands. Did you notice how common their restaurants are? Have you eaten at one? Let us know. And if there's another company you want us to talk about, tell us.